My son and my daughter-in-law took me to a five-star hotel for the first time. We stayed the entire weekend, but then he said, "Thanks for the stay, Mum." Then he ran off, leaving me without a single penny to pay the bill. Suddenly, an elderly receptionist came out from behind the desk and asked, "Are you Mr. Marcus's daughter? I worked for your father for 33 years. Before he died, he told me, 'Give this envelope to my daughter when you meet her.'" When I opened the envelope, I was speechless, because it turned out my son had planned all of this from the beginning, and what I found inside changed my life forever. Allow me to tell you how I arrived at that terrifying moment. 2 weeks ago, Ben called me with a voice I hadn't heard since he was a child. Excited, warm, as if he truly cared. "Mum, I want to take you somewhere special. Alice and I want to thank you for everything you've done for us," he said. My hands shook holding the phone. 66 years of my life working in silence, raising that boy with hands scrubbed raw. And never had I heard words like that come out of his mouth. "I've booked an incredible hotel, 5 stars. You'll get your own suite, spa gourmet restaurant. Everything is included. It's a gift for you. You deserve it," he continued. I closed my eyes, and tears just flowed. I thought that finally, after years of sacrifice, sleepless nights cleaning other people's houses, knees aching from scrubbing floors to pay for his school fees, my son saw me. He appreciated me. He loved me. How foolish I was. Friday morning, Ben and Alice picked me up in a shiny black saloon. Alice was wearing a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Ben wore expensive sunglasses and that perfect smile he always showed when he wanted something. However, I didn't know that at the time. I only saw my successful, elegant son finally proud of his mother. The hotel was like a palace, soaring marble pillars, floors so polished you could see your reflection, crystal chandeliers that seemed to scatter golden light, the scent of jasmine and expensive timber wafted through the air. I had never set foot in such a place. I felt small out of place in my old brown dress and worn-out shoes, but Ben held my arm and whispered, "Relax, Mom. Here you are as important as anyone else." Alice smiled beside me, perfect with makeup like a magazine model. "Sarah, you'll love the suite. View of the gardens, jacuzzi, everything," she said. Her voice was as sweet as poisoned honey. But I didn't know. I only felt gratitude, happiness, a warm feeling in my chest, thinking maybe, just maybe, my life was finally improving. The suite was bigger than my entire council flat. A huge bed with white sheets that looked like clouds. Giant windows overlooking a garden full of red and yellow flowers, a beige sofa where 3 people could sleep, and the bathroom. Good heavens! The bathroom had pearl-colored tiles, mirrors with golden lights, towels so soft they made me want to cry. I sat on the bed and touched the sheets with trembling hands. This is real. My son brought me here. He loves me. That weekend was like a dream. Breakfast with exotic fruits I had never tasted. Dining in a restaurant where waiters treated me like a queen. Ben ordered wine. Alice laughed with her crystalline laugh. And I felt part of something beautiful. For the first time in decades, I didn't think about debts bills or the pain in my back. There was only that moment of false peace. Saturday night we had dinner on the hotel terrace. The city lights glittered in the distance like falling stars. Ben raised his glass and said, "To Mom for everything you sacrificed for me." Alice clapped. I wept. We toasted, and as the sweet wine flowed down my throat, I didn't know I was swallowing my own destruction. Sunday morning, Ben told me to come down to the lobby at 11:00 a.m. "We'll check out together, Mom. Just relax," he said. I came down right on time with my small suitcase and a full heart. He and Alice were already there talking to a blonde receptionist. I approached with a smile. Ben saw me, hugged me tightly, and whispered, "Thanks for the stay, Mom. An unforgettable weekend." Then he shoved the bill into my hand, £8,000, and he walked away. They walked slowly, as if strolling in a park. Ben with hands in his trouser pockets, Alice with a designer bag hanging from her shoulder, both laughing softly, whispering in each other's ears. I watched them pass through the hotel's glass revolving doors, get into that shiny black car, and disappear into the morning traffic. Just like that. As if nothing had happened. As if I weren't his mother. As if the last 3 days had never existed. My legs went weak. The bill in my hand shook so violently the numbers blurred.
8,000, 8,000. I earned 1,000 a month cleaning houses. 8,000 talents was nearly a year of my life working until my back broke, and my son knew that. He knew exactly how much I earned, how much I had, and how much I didn't have. He knew I couldn't pay this. Never. The blonde receptionist cleared her throat softly from the desk. "Madam, would you like to pay by cash or card?" Her voice was polite, professional, but there was something in her eyes. Pity. She was witnessing my humiliation firsthand and trying to be polite. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Only a gasp like someone had kicked me in the stomach. Around me, the lobby was still bustling. Young couples laughing beside the marble fountain. A man in a suit talking on his mobile, gesturing with his hand. A family with small children dragging suitcases toward the lifts. Everyone living their normal lives, while my life shattered into pieces in front of them. I felt heat in my cheeks. Pure humiliation flowed through me like liquid fire. I don't have... The words came out broken. Just a whisper. The receptionist lowered her head, waiting. Her pink manicured nails tapped the keyboard softly. "Madam, if there is a problem, I can call the manager." Problem was too small a word to describe the abyss I had just fallen into. My son had left me in a luxury hotel with no way to pay. He had used me. He brought me here knowing exactly what he would do, planned it, enjoyed it. Tears began to fall without permission, thick hot filled with anger and shame. The guests started looking at me, some with curiosity, others quickly looking away, embarrassed to witness something so private and painful. The receptionist became nervous. "Madam, please calm down. We will sort this out." But her voice sounded hollow. There was no solution. I didn't have 8,000 talents. I didn't even have $100. I only had enough for the bus fare home. Suddenly, I heard slow footsteps shuffling across the marble, the footsteps of someone elderly. I looked up with wet eyes and saw an old woman coming out from behind the desk. She must have been over 80. Her hair was completely white, tied in a bun. Deep wrinkles told the story of decades, and honey-colored eyes stared at me with strange intensity. She wore the hotel uniform, but hers was different, older, as if she had worn the same fabric for 30 years. She approached me with short but sure steps. The blonde receptionist looked at her in surprise. "Emily, you don't need to—" But the old woman raised a wrinkled hand, silencing her. Emily. The name meant nothing to me at that moment. The old woman stopped in front of me so close I could smell soft lavender perfume and the scent of thyme on her. She studied my face as if looking for something specific. Her eyes swept my face with a mixture of wonder and sadness. "Are you the daughter of Mr. Marcus?" Her voice was raspy but firm. The question hit me like a punch to the chest. Marcus, my father. For more than 30 years, no one had spoken that name in front of me. He died when I was 35, leaving me alone with a small child and no inheritance. Only vague memories of a serious man who worked too hard and rarely spoke. Yes, I am his daughter." My voice came out cracked, confused. How did this woman know who my father was? Emily closed her eyes for a moment, as if holding back great emotion. Then she opened them and a single tear rolled down her wrinkled cheek. "I worked for your father for 33 years, since I was 20 until the day he died." The lobby seemed to freeze. The noises became distant. There was only her and me in that suspended moment. "Your father was a great man. Difficult, demanding, but great. I was the housekeeper at his residence. I cleaned, cooked, looked after his things, and attended to his needs." Her voice trembled with every word laden with a weight I didn't understand. "Before he died, he called me to his bedside. He was very sick, barely able to speak. He held my hand and said something I never forgot." Emily reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a yellowed envelope folded and worn from years. The corners were frayed, the ink on the front was almost erased, but there in shaky handwriting was my name, Sarah. "He told me, Emily, one day my daughter will come here. She will be alone. She will be lost. When you see her, give this to her. It is the only thing I can give her now." She held out the envelope to me with a trembling hand. I stared at it without daring to touch it. "He knew I would work here. He managed to get me hired at this hotel 30 years ago. He told me to wait that one day you would come, and you are here." Her voice broke completely. "After 33 years, I can finally keep my promise.
I took the envelope with numb fingers. It felt heavy, containing something solid inside more than just paper. I opened it slowly, feeling every second stretch like hot rubber. Inside was a folded letter and an old, rusty metal key. The key had the number 447 engraved on it, and hanging from it was a small leather tag with a handwritten address. I unfolded the letter. My father's handwriting. The slanted script I remembered from the few times he signed documents at home. The words hit me like stones. Sarah, if you are reading this, it is because you have finally discovered that nothing in our family is as it seems. Forgive me for these secrets. Forgive me for leaving you without explanation. This key opens a warehouse at the address Emily will give you. Inside, you will find the truth about who I really was and about who you are. Go alone. Trust only yourself. Your father, Marcus. I read the letter 3 times in a row, but the words still made no sense. Secrets, truth, who I really was. Every sentence was a riddle shrouded in fog. My father was a quiet, hard-working man who left early in the morning and came home late at night. He never talked about his work. He never shared anything personal. When he died, I hoped for a small inheritance, something to help me raise Ben, but there was nothing. Only debts that I had to pay by selling the few pieces of furniture left. And now 30 years later, a rusty key and a letter saying it was all a lie. I looked up at Emily. She stared at me with honey-colored eyes filled with something that looked like bitterness mixed with urgency. "What is in that warehouse?" My voice sounded louder than I expected, breaking the thick silence surrounding us. Emily shook her head slowly. "I don't know. Your father never told me. He only asked me to give this to you when I saw you lost and alone, and you are here." I looked again at the leather tag hanging from the key. The address was written in black ink that was almost erased. 447 Industrial Way Warehouse, 12 East Zone. I knew the area. It was a derelict part of the city in the East End, full of old warehouses and broken streets where no one went after sunset. A dark, forgotten place perfect for hiding secrets you didn't want anyone to find. "Madam, and the hotel bill." The blonde receptionist's voice pulled me back to reality. She was still standing there holding the paper with the £8,000 I couldn't pay. Humiliation hit me again, but now there was something else. Anger. A cold, sharp anger growing in my chest like cutting ice. My son had done this to me. He brought me here knowing exactly what would happen. Planned it. Emily turned to the receptionist with an authority I didn't expect from someone so old. "I will take care of this lady's bill. Put it in my name. I will pay it in installments from my wages." The receptionist opened her mouth to protest, but Emily silenced her with a look. "Your father saved my life more times than I can count. This is the minimum I can do for his daughter." I didn't know what to say. The words stuck in my throat. This woman, this stranger who had kept a secret for 3 decades paying my debt, a debt created by my own son to destroy me. I can't accept this. Emily took my hand between her cold, wrinkled ones. "You can and you will. But first, you must go to that address. You must open that warehouse and you will find out why your son did what he did." Her words froze my blood. "What do you mean?" Emily squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Your father told me a lot before he died. Things about your family, about the secrets he buried all his life. And he told me that one day someone would come looking for that truth, someone of your blood. But he didn't expect it to be you who needed it. He hoped it would be someone else." A chill ran down my spine. "Who else knows about this?" Emily let go of my hand and stepped back as if saying the next thing required physical effort. "Your son came here 6 months ago. He asked about me. He said he was investigating his grandfather's life for a family project. I told him I used to work for Mr. Marcus, that I knew him well. He asked a lot of questions, too many, about properties, about money, about inheritance." The world spun beneath my feet. Ben had been here. He spoke to Emily. He had been investigating my father 6 months ago. 6 months planning this. Planning to bring me here, humiliate me, leave me with nothing. But why? What did he find that I didn't know? "What did you tell him?" My voice was just a trembling whisper. Emily lowered her gaze, ashamed. "I said that your father had properties that he left unfinished business. I didn't give details, but it was enough. I saw how his eyes lit up pure greed, and I knew I had made a mistake." I felt sick. My son came here, manipulated this old woman to get information, and then designed all of this. The trip to the hotel, the luxury, the fake smiles, all to leave me in ruin while he searched for what my father had hidden. "I have to go to that warehouse." The words came out firm, filled with determination I didn't know I had. Emily nodded slowly. "Go now before he gets there first, because if Ben knows where it is, he won't leave anything for you." I walked out of the hotel like someone sleepwalking, clutching the key in my hand until the metal cut my skin. The midday sun hit my face, blinding me for a moment. The city kept moving, indifferent to my pain. Cars sped by. People walked hurriedly. Vendors shouted their wares. And I stood there holding a rusty key and a truth I still didn't understand. I took a bus towards the East End. The journey took almost an hour. I sat by the window watching the city change from clean modern buildings to old constructions with graffiti and broken windows. The streets became narrower, dirtier, more dangerous. When I reached the stop, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky with orange and deep purple. Industrial Way 447 was exactly as I remembered from decades ago. Rows of endless rusty metal warehouses with corroded doors and massive padlocks. Some had broken windows, others were completely boarded up. Weeds grew through the cracks in the pavement, rubbish piled up in the corners. The silence felt heavy, broken only by the sound of a dog barking in the distance. I walked slowly, counting the numbers on the doors. Warehouse 8. Warehouse 9, Warehouse 10. My heart beat so fast I could feel it in my throat. Finally, I reached Warehouse 12, a dark gray metal door taller than me with a massive padlock that seemed untouched for decades. Thick cobwebs hung in the corners, dust covered every inch. I took the key out of my pocket. My hands shook so much it took 3 tries to insert it into the padlock. When it finally went in, the metal screeched with a piercing sound that made my skin crawl. I turned the key slowly. The padlock opened with a dry click that echoed in the silence. I removed the padlock and dropped it to the ground. Then with both hands I pushed the door. It opened slowly, screeching as if screaming in pain. A gust of cold, damp air rushed out from inside, carrying the smell of mold, rusty metal, and something else. Something old. Something that had been waiting to be discovered for 30 years. I looked into total darkness. Only shadows danced in the dim light. I reached for my mobile phone, turned on the torch, and took the first step towards the truth my father had buried. And what I saw inside made me understand that my life would never be the same again. The light from my mobile sliced through the darkness in a trembling beam that barely illuminated 2 meters in front of me. The inside of the warehouse smelled of abandonment. Years of silence accumulated between cold metal walls. My footsteps echoed against the cracked concrete floor. Every echo multiplied until it became a ghostly whisper. I moved forward slowly, sweeping the light into every corner. Every shadow seemed to move. The room was larger than I imagined, about 20 meters long, perhaps 10 meters wide. The walls were covered with rusty metal shelves full of cardboard boxes rotting from damp. Some had collapsed, spilling their contents onto the floor. Yellowed papers, disintegrated folders, blurry photos. In the middle of the warehouse was an old wooden desk, covered in dust so thick it looked like gray velvet. And on that desk, placed perfectly, as if someone had left it there yesterday, was a large, thick manila envelope. Intact. Without dust. As if time hadn't touched it. I approached slowly. My heart hammered against my ribs. This didn't make sense. Everything else in the warehouse was destroyed by decades of neglect. But that envelope looked new. Someone had been here, recently. I reached out a trembling hand and picked it up. It felt heavy, containing more than just paper. I opened it carefully and poured the contents onto the desk. Documents, dozens of documents. Property deeds, birth certificates, death certificates, old black and white photos, and a brown leather notebook with folded corners. I clamped my mobile between my teeth to free my hands and started examining them. The first property deed was for a house in the city center. Address 328 High Street. Registered in the name of Marcus Davies. Date 1982. I had never seen that address. I never knew my father owned property other than the humble house where I was raised. I checked the next document, another property, and another, and another. 5 houses in total, all in expensive areas of London, all registered during the 70s and 80s. How was it possible my father worked in a textile factory?
He earned enough to support us, but there was never luxury, never holidays or new cars or expensive clothes. My mother sewed our skirts from scraps of fabric. I wore shoes until the soles fell off, and my father owned 5 properties. My hands shook holding the papers that rewrote my entire family history. I picked up one of the birth certificates. The name stopped my heart. Raymond Davies. Date of birth, 15 April 1968. Father's name, Marcus Davies. Mother's name, Victoria Green. I read the document 3 times, but the words didn't change. My father had another son. A son born 6 years before me. A son with another woman. A brother I never knew existed. I searched frantically through the papers. Found another certificate. Anne, born in 1975. Father Marcus Davies. Mother Martina Torres. Another daughter, 3 years younger than me. My breathing became irregular, gasping. My father had other families, maybe 2, maybe more, while I grew up believing we were his only world. He had other children, other women, other parallel lives that never intersected with mine. The photos confirmed everything. I picked one up and held it close to the phone light. My young father, maybe 30 years old, with his arm around a dark-skinned woman with a broad smile. He was holding a baby. Behind them, a large house with a garden. In the next photo, my father with another woman, this time blonde, in front of a shiny car. In another, he was alone, standing in front of an office building, wearing a suit and tie. He wasn't a factory worker. He was a completely different person. I opened the leather notebook with trembling hands. The pages were full of my father's slanted writing. They were records, detailed records of income and expenses. January 1978. Rental income, $3,200. Payment for Victoria, $500. Payment for Rose, my mother, $400. Savings for new property, $2,300. Page after page, year after year. Cold, calculated records of how he divided his money between his different families. I dropped to the concrete floor with the notebook pressed to my chest. Everything I believed about my father was a lie. He wasn't a simple man who worked hard to support us. He was a businessman who had accumulated properties by renting out houses, exploiting tenants, keeping multiple families in ignorance. And my mother never knew. She never suspected that the money he gave her was only a fraction of what he actually had. But that didn't explain why Ben did what he did. How did he find all this, and why was leaving me at that hotel part of his plan? I searched through the documents until I found a recent one. A letter dated 7 months ago, written in a handwriting I didn't recognize, addressed to Ben. In response to your inquiry regarding the inheritance of Marcus Davies, I confirm that the mentioned properties are still registered in the deceased's name. However, there is a sealed will kept at this solicitor's office which cannot be opened until all legitimate heirs have been located and notified. The recognized heirs to date are Raymond Davies and Ann Torres, deceased. Yours sincerely, Solicitor Public Number 47. There it was. Ben had investigated his grandfather, discovered the existence of the properties, the will, and other heirs, and he decided that wealth was his. But to claim it, he needed me, the other legitimate daughter, to disappear or become so broken that I couldn't fight legally. That's why the hotel. That's why the humiliation. That's why leaving me penniless. He wanted to destroy me emotionally, ruin me financially, so that when the time came to open the will, I wouldn't have the strength or resources to claim anything. A metallic sound startled me from my thoughts, coming from outside. Footsteps. Someone walking near the warehouse. I jumped up, stuffing the most important documents into my bag and turning off the phone torch. Darkness swallowed me completely. The footsteps approached. Slow, heavy, deliberate. They stopped right in front of the warehouse door. I knew you would come here. Ben's voice cut through the silence like a cold knife, without a trace of the fake affection he used during the weekend. I turned on my phone and aimed the light at the door. He was there, his silhouette cutting against the orange twilight sky. He no longer wore the expensive sunglasses or the perfect smile. His face was hard. His eyes shone with something dark I had never seen in him before. "Emily told you, didn't she? That stupid old woman couldn't keep her mouth shut." He stepped inside. I backed away instinctively. "I spent 6 months investigating your father. 6 months discovering that the saintly grandfather I never knew was actually a liar who amassed a fortune, while he left us in poverty, and now that fortune is mine. He had other children, Ben. There is a will, other heirs. It's not just yours." My voice sounded firmer than I expected. He laughed a dry laugh without humor.
Those heirs don't know you exist, and if you don't exist legally or financially, you can't claim anything. That's why I needed to break you first, leave you with no money, no resources, no dignity. So when the time comes to open the will, you're too destroyed to fight." Alice appeared behind him with arms crossed, and a cold expression that I now understood was her true face. "The hotel idea was mine," Alice said with toxic pride. "An emotional and financial blow at the same time. Elegant, isn't it?" They laughed together, and the sound made my stomach turn. My son and his wife had planned this as if it were a game, as if I weren't human, as if my pain were entertainment. "I won't let you take it." The words came out before I could think about them. Ben stepped towards me again, and this time his expression became threatening. "You have no choice, Mom. You're already broken. You have nothing. And when I'm done with you, you won't even have a place to live." But then from the darkness at the back of the warehouse, a deep male voice cut the air like thunder. "She is not alone." We all froze. The voice came from the shadows, heavy and firm, filled with authority. I aimed the phone light there, and the figure of a man slowly emerged from the darkness. He was tall, broad-shouldered, maybe around 60 years old. Gray hair cut very short, deep wrinkles around his eyes, and a square jaw that felt strangely familiar to me. He wore simple clothes, jeans, and a dark green shirt. But there was something in his posture that demanded respect. He stopped about 3 meters from us with arms crossed over his chest. His eyes swept over Ben with disgust before settling on me with an expression I couldn't describe. There was pain there and also recognition. "Who are you?" Ben stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation, but his voice sounded less sure. The man didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me, studying me as if he were seeing a ghost. "I'm Raymond," he said finally with a gravelly voice. "Raymond Davies, your brother." The world stopped. The words floated in the thick air of the warehouse like dense smoke. Brother. The birth certificate I saw minutes ago came to life before my eyes. The son my father had 6 years before me with another woman. The heir Ben mentioned. He was here. He had been waiting in the shadows all this time. "Impossible," I whispered, though deep down I knew it was true. Raymond stepped into the light, and I could see him better. He had the same eyes as my father, dark brown with that sharp gaze I remembered from when I was a child. The same nose shape, the same jawline. It was like seeing my father come back to life. But 30 years later, tears began to blur my vision without permission. Raymond pulled a folded paper from his shirt pocket and held it out to me. 3 months ago, I received a call from a solicitor. They said my father died 30 years ago and left a will stating I was one of the heirs. I knew nothing about this. My mother never told me about him. I never knew my father. I grew up believing he left me before I was born. I took the paper with trembling hands. It was the same letter I saw in the documents from the solicitor. I started investigating. Raymond continued, his voice filled with suppressed emotion. I discovered I had a sister, you, Sarah, and another Anne who died 10 years ago in an accident. I discovered that our father was a man who lived parallel lives, who lied to us all, who built wealth behind our mothers' backs, while they worked themselves to the bone to support us. His voice broke on the last word. I could see the raw pain in his eyes, the same pain I felt. We were children of the same deception victims, of the same man who gave us life but denied us the truth. When I found out this warehouse existed, I came to investigate. I found all the documents, the properties, accounts, letters, and I found something else. He turned to Ben with a look that could freeze hell. I found that your son had been stalking, that he had bribed the solicitor's clerks to get personal information, that he had contacted Emily to get details about the properties, and I understood he was planning something, so I decided to watch, see how far he was capable of going. Raymond walked slowly towards Ben, who backed away instinctively. Alice pressed closer to the wall, her previous arrogance evaporating. What I didn't expect was that you would be so cruel, that you would humiliate your own mother in public, that you would leave her penniless without dignity just to destroy her emotionally. Raymond stopped in front of Ben, much taller, much more imposing. You are worse than our father. At least he had the decency to keep his lies secret. You used them as a weapon against the woman who gave you life. Ben tried to regain his defiant posture, but his voice came out shaking. That wealth is mine. I'm his grandson. I have more right than you, a bastard who never knew the old man. Raymond didn't move, but the tension in his jaw was visible. Legally, we are equal heirs. Sarah, me and you through your mother. But here is the difference. I didn't come to steal. I came to know the truth and to make sure no one else suffers because of Marcus Davies' secrets." He turned to me and his expression softened. "Sarah, I know this is hard. I know your world just collapsed, but you need to know something else." He pulled another document from inside his shirt pocket. This one was older, yellowed, with official seals. "Our father's will is very specific. He divides the properties equally among his legitimate children, but he added a clause. If any heir attempts to defraud another heir through deception or coercion, they automatically forfeit their share." The words fell like a bomb in the silence of the warehouse. I looked at Ben and saw his face go pale. Raymond continued merciless. "Your son planned to destroy you to take your share. He paid a private investigator, bribed employees, conspired to leave you in financial and emotional ruin. Everything is documented. I took it upon myself to collect every piece of evidence over the last 3 months." He pulled out his mobile phone and started swiping through photos. Emails between Ben and the private investigator. Bank transfers to the corrupt solicitor's clerk. Text messages between him and Alice planning every detail of the weekend at the hotel. Everything was there. Every step of their plan recorded in digital evidence that would destroy them legally. According to the will's clause, Ben forfeits all rights to the inheritance. And you, Alice? He looked at my daughter-in-law with absolute coldness. "As an accomplice, you won't see a penny either." Alice let out a stifled scream. "This is cheating! You can't prove it!" Raymond smiled without humor. "I can and I will. I've already handed copies of all this evidence to the solicitor in charge of the will. The legal hearing is in 2 weeks. By then, you two won't just lose the inheritance. You'll be facing criminal charges for fraud, coercive control, and conspiracy." Ben exploded. "You damn stranger interfering! This is none of your business. She's my mother, not yours." He moved threateningly towards Raymond, but Raymond didn't flinch. "Exactly. She is your mother. The woman who raised you, sacrificed for you, gave you everything she had. And you repaid her with betrayal. That makes you worse than a thief. That makes you a monster." The silence that followed was so dense, it could be physically felt. Ben shook with helpless rage. Alice cried against the wall, her mask of perfection completely shattered. And I stood there trying to process that, in one afternoon, I had lost a son, but gained a brother. That my father was a liar, but had the foresight to protect us from the grave. That everything I believed about my family was fake. Raymond approached me and placed a large, rough hand on my shoulder. "I know it hurts. Believe me, I know. I went through the same thing 3 months ago. Discovering your whole life is built on a lie is like dying and being reborn at the same time. But there is something you need to understand." His voice became softer, almost affectionate. "Our father was a terrible man, but we don't have to be like that. We can choose what to do with what he left." "I don't want the money." The words tumbled out of my mouth before I could think. Raymond nodded slowly, as if he expected that answer. "Neither do I. At least not all of it. That's why I have a proposal, but first we need to finish this." He turned to Ben for the last time. "You have 2 choices. Get out of here now. Stay away from your mother forever. And maybe, just maybe, I won't press criminal charges. Or you try to fight this legally and I make sure you spend the next few years in a cell." Ben looked at me with pure hatred. There was no trace left of the son I once loved. There was only a cruel stranger who used my love as a weapon. "This isn't over." He spat the words like poison. He grabbed Alice's arm and both stormed out of the warehouse. Their footsteps echoed against the metal until they faded into the distance. And then for the first time all afternoon, Raymond and I were alone. The silence left after Ben and Alice departed was different. It wasn't oppressive or threatening. It was strange, laden with unanswered questions and half-revealed truths. Raymond stood before me with hands in his pockets, looking at me with a mix of curiosity and caution, as if I were a wounded animal that could attack or flee at any moment. And maybe he was right. I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know if I should cry, scream, or just drop to the floor and give up. "How did you know I would be here today?" My voice sounded raspy, exhausted from so much emotion. Raymond shrugged and leaned against one of the rusty shelves. "I didn't know for sure, but I knew your son's plan. I knew he would take you to the hotel, that he would leave you, and I suspected Emily would keep her promise. So I came here every afternoon for the last 2 weeks waiting. Today was the day. 2 weeks. This man, this stranger who shared my blood, had spent 2 weeks waiting in an abandoned warehouse to protect me from a danger I didn't even know existed. Why? The question came out as just a whisper.
Why do you care what happens to me? You don't know me. We don't know each other.
Raymond looked away into the shadows at the back of the warehouse, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Because I spent 58 years believing I was alone in the world, he said finally, his voice filled with an old, deep sadness. My mother died when I was 19. I never had siblings. I never had family other than her. And when I found out I had a sister, that there was a person in the world who shared my blood, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Hope. The possibility of not being alone. He turned to me and his eyes glistened with unshed tears. Anne is dead. It's just you and me left. And I wasn't going to let your son rob you before we had a chance to know each other. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. Thick, hot, unstoppable. I cried for my lost son, for my liar father, for my mother who died without knowing the truth, for all the years we had lived apart, not knowing of each other's existence. I cried until there were no tears left. Only dry sobs shaking my whole body. And Raymond approached and hugged me. He didn't say anything. He didn't try to comfort me with empty words. He just held me as I crumbled. His embrace was firm and warm, smelling of simple soap and honesty. And in the arms of this stranger who was my brother, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Safety. The feeling that someone was on my side unconditionally, without hidden agendas, without betrayal waiting in the shadows. When I finally calmed down, Raymond let me go and pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket. I took it and wiped my face, ashamed of breaking down like that. Sorry, I mumbled. He shook his head. Don't apologize. You have the right to cry. You have the right to feel everything you're feeling. He bent down and picked up the leather notebook I had dropped on the floor. He opened it to a marked page and showed it to me. Look at this. This is proof of who Marcus Davies really was. I brought the phone light closer. It was a diary entry dated 1985. Victoria threatened to tell everything today if I didn't give her more money. I gave her an extra $500 to shut her up. Rose suspects something. I must be more careful. The properties are generating good income. Soon I will be able to buy the 5th house. I read entry after entry, each one colder and more calculating than the last. My father didn't write about love or regret. He wrote about money control manipulation, how to keep his women separate, how to ensure none of his children knew each other, how to maximize his profits from the properties while giving us the bare minimum to survive. It was a meticulous record of a double life, triple life, maintained with the precision of an accountant and the cruelty of a con man. He was a monster, I said, and the words burned my throat. Raymond closed the notebook slowly. He was human. A selfish, cowardly, and cruel human, but human nonetheless. He sat on the concrete floor, leaning his back against the wall, and gestured for me to sit beside him. I did too, tired to keep standing. You know what's saddest, Raymond continued, that in the end, with all his money and properties and secrets, he died alone in a hospital. None of his women were there, none of his children accompanied him. Only Emily, the employee he paid to keep his lies. Emily looked after him until the end. I remembered the old woman's words in the hotel lobby. Raymond nodded. She was the only loyal person he had, and it wasn't even out of love. It was out of misguided loyalty, and for 33 years of wages he paid her. But at least he had the decency to fulfill his last wish, to give you that envelope, to ensure you knew the truth. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The warehouse was cold dampness seeping through the metal cracks. But there was something comforting in sharing this quiet space with someone who understood exactly what I felt. You said you had a proposal. I broke the silence. Raymond straightened up and looked me in the eyes. The 5 properties our father left are worth about $2 million in total. According to the will, we are each entitled to half. That's money we didn't need, but now we have. He paused, choosing his words carefully. My proposal is this. We sell the properties, we take the money, and use it to do something our father never did. Something good. Like what? Raymond smiled for the first time since I met him, and the smile completely transformed his face. Emily needs money for her old age. She has worked all her life and barely has enough to survive. We'll give her $50,000. It's the minimum we can do for the woman who kept our father's secrets, but ultimately helped us find each other. I nodded slowly. That made sense. It was fair. The rest, we split it, but not for us to spend. We use it to help others. We can create a fund for single mothers who work cleaning houses like our mothers. Women raising children alone, breaking their backs to provide an education. We give them scholarships. We give them opportunities. We turn that dirty money into something meaningful.
His eyes shone with intensity. We turn a liar's legacy into hope for people who really need it. The tears returned, but this time it was different. It wasn't out of pain, but out of something resembling peace. Our father used money to control and hurt, I said slowly. We will use it to free and heal. Raymond held out his hand to me. Do you agree? I took his hand rough and strong and shook it firmly. I agree. We got up from the floor, brushing off the dust and damp. Raymond started gathering the documents scattered on the desk, organizing them into neat piles. We need a solicitor, someone to help us with the legal process of the will and the sale of the properties. I nodded. I know someone, a neighbor who is a solicitor. He's always been kind to me. Raymond smiled. Perfect. Tomorrow we start the process. Tomorrow. The word sounded strange. A few hours ago, I didn't have a tomorrow. I was destroyed, left without a future. And now I had a brother, a plan, and something resembling a purpose. Raymond, I said as we walked towards the warehouse exit, thank you for waiting for me, for protecting me, for everything. He stopped at the door and looked at me with eyes that were like my father's, but completely different in their warmth. Don't thank me. We are family, and real family doesn't leave you in a hotel lobby with a bill you can't pay. Real family waits in an abandoned warehouse for 2 weeks just to make sure you're okay. His voice cracked slightly. I spent my whole life without siblings. Now that I've found you, I'm not leaving you alone again. We walked out of the warehouse together. The sky was completely dark now, dotted with stars shining like promises. Raymond closed the metal door and locked the padlock again. This place has served its purpose, he said. We don't need to come back here ever again. We walked along the desolate industrial road, our footsteps sinking unplanned. Raymond walked me to the bus stop. The street was deserted, lit only by old street lamps flickering with yellowish light. The night chill began to seep into my clothes, and I hugged myself, trying to retain warmth. He took off his denim jacket without saying a word and placed it on my shoulders. It smelled of cheap detergent and honesty. So different from Ben's expensive cologne and lies. Where do you live? Raymond asked, hands now in his trouser pockets. I gave him my address. It was an old building in North London, not fancy at all, but it was mine. I paid for it with 30 years of hard work. It's far, I'll drive you. I shook my head. I don't want to trouble you anymore. He gave a short laugh. Sarah, I just spent 2 weeks waiting in an abandoned warehouse. Driving you home is no trouble at all. His truck was parked 2 blocks away. An old, dirty white van with dents in the door and a cracked windscreen corner. But it started on the first try, roaring with an engine that sounded well-maintained. I climbed into the passenger seat and fastened the seatbelt while Raymond turned on the heater. The interior smelled of old coffee and a cheap air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. He drove in silence for the first few minutes, focused on the city's night traffic. I looked out the window, watching how the industrial streets gradually changed into residential zones. Families eating dinner behind lit windows, children playing on the pavement under their parents' supervision. Normal, simple, honest lives. Everything I thought I had and turned out to be just an illusion carefully constructed. What do you do for work? Raymond's question broke my reverie. I clean houses, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, if I need extra money. My voice sounded tired to my own ears. Raymond nodded slowly. My mom cleaned houses too. She worked until the cancer made her so weak she couldn't hold a broom anymore. She died with ruined hands and a broken back. She was 48. The pain in his voice was so raw my chest ached. My mother died at 52. Diabetes. She didn't have money for medicine. She kept working until she fainted in one of her clients' houses. The homeowner didn't even call an ambulance. She just called me to come pick her up because she was dirtying her marble floor. The words came out bitter, filled with anger I had kept for 14 years. Raymond hit the steering wheel with his palm, not with force but with helpless frustration. Our mothers killed themselves working, while our father collected properties. He could have helped them. He could have given us a better life, but he chose secrets and control above all else. He rubbed his eyes with one hand as if trying to erase a painful image. That's why I want to use the money to help other women. So no more mothers have to die cleaning the floors of people who don't even see them as human. What do you do? I asked, needing to change the subject slightly. Raymond smiled sadly. I'm a mechanic. I have a small garage in South London. I fix old cars rich people don't want anymore. I don't make much, but it's honest.
Every penny in my pocket I earned with my own hands, not stealing from anyone or lying to anyone.
There was pride in his voice, genuine pride that my son never had. Ben. The thought of him pierced me like a knife. My son. The boy I raised whom I fed with food I didn't eat so he wouldn't go hungry. The boy I walked to school every day for 12 years under sun and rain because we didn't have money for the bus. The boy who cried in my arms when he had his first heartbreak, when he failed an exam, when he felt rejected by the world. That boy had turned into a cruel stranger who used me as a disposable tool. Do you think he'll come back? The question came out before I could stop it. Raymond didn't answer immediately. He kept driving, hands steady on the wheel, gaze fixed on the road. Honestly, I don't know. Greed does strange things to people. He might accept he lost and disappear, or he might try something desperate. He glanced at me briefly. That's why I want you to have this. He pulled something from the compartment between the seats and handed it to me. It was a card with his phone number handwritten on it. If Ben tries to contact you, if he threatens you, if you feel in danger, call me immediately. Doesn't matter what time, doesn't matter what day. You call me and I'll come. The sincerity in his voice left no room for doubt. This man I had only known for a few hours was willing to protect me, while my son, who shared my life for 38 years, had planned my destruction. I put the card in my bag along with Raymond's warehouse documents. There was something I didn't understand. Why did our father write the will that way, with the clause about heirs trying to defraud others? If he spent his whole life lying and manipulating, why put a moral rule in his will? Raymond sighed slowly. I've thought about that a lot. I think in the end, when he knew he was dying, he had a moment of clarity, or cowardice. He didn't have the courage to tell the truth while alive, but he wanted to ensure that after his death, none of his children destroyed each other for his dirty money. It was his twisted way of protecting us. One last manipulation, I said bitterly. Even from the grave he keeps controlling. Raymond nodded. But this time, his manipulation protected us. Without that clause, your son would have won. He would have destroyed you legally and taken everything. Our father, for the first time in his selfish life, did something that benefited us, even if it was just by accident. We arrived at my building 20 minutes later. It was a gray, 5-story concrete block with small balconies full of drying washing and flower pots with half-dead plants. It wasn't pretty, but it was home. Raymond turned off the engine and turned to me. Will you be okay tonight? The question was laden with genuine concern. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was true. I'll be fine. I have a lot to think about, but I'll be fine. I got out of the van and handed back his jacket. He took it but didn't move. Sarah, tomorrow at 10 a.m., I have an appointment with my solicitor. Can you come? I want you to be there when we start the probate process. I hesitated for a moment. Tomorrow I had to work, 3 houses to clean, but this was more important. This was the future. I'll be there. Send me the address. Raymond took out his phone and sent me the location by text. Then he got out of the van and walked around the vehicle to where I stood. He gave me a brief but tight hug. You'll get through this. All this pain, betrayal, confusion. You'll get through it because you're stronger than you think. He pulled away and looked into my eyes. And you're not alone. Not anymore. You have me now. I climbed the stairs to my flat on the 3rd floor. Every step was an effort after the longest day of my life. I opened the door and walked into my small space of 2 rooms. Everything was exactly as I left it Friday morning before Ben picked me up to take me to the hotel. An unwashed coffee cup in the sink, newspaper open on the table, my unmade bed, as if time had frozen. But I wasn't the same person who left that flat 3 days ago. That Sarah was naive, still believed in her son, still lived in the illusion of a loving family. This Sarah knew the truth, about her father, about her son, about the fragility of blood ties when money and greed get in the way. But she also knew something new, that family doesn't always come from where you expect. Sometimes it comes in the form of a brother you never knew, waiting in an abandoned warehouse to make sure you're okay. I dropped onto the sofa without taking off my shoes. Total exhaustion, physical and emotional. I closed my eyes, and for a moment there was only the silence of my flat and my slow heartbeat. Tomorrow the legal process would begin. Tomorrow I would face the consequences of everything I had discovered. But tonight I just needed to breathe. My phone vibrated in my bag. I took it out expecting a message from Raymond, but it wasn't him. It was Ben. The message glowed on my screen like an open wound. Mom, we need to talk.
Please give me a chance to explain. It's not what you think. I love you, your son, Ben.
I read the words 1, 2, 3 times. Each reading made my stomach turn stronger. I love you. 2 words that had meant so much to me for 38 years now sounded hollow, empty, like counterfeit coins trying to pass as gold. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to answer, the part that was still a mother remembering the little boy who used to hug my legs when he was afraid of the dark. But the other part, the part that had grown up painfully in the last few hours, knew that answering meant opening a door that must remain closed. Ben didn't want to explain. He wanted to manipulate. That was the only thing he knew how to do. I blocked his number. The action was simple, just 3 touches on the screen, but it felt like cutting an umbilical cord that had connected us for nearly 4 decades. I cried as I did it, silent tears running down my cheeks and falling on the screen, distorting the letters. I cried for the death of something that maybe never existed. The son I loved was an illusion. The real man was a cruel stranger. I got up from the sofa and walked to the window. From the 3rd floor I could see the street, half lit by a street lamp that needed repairing, a stray dog rummaging through rubbish, a couple walking hand in hand. Life went on indifferent to my pain. I wondered how many people in those gray buildings were living their own silent tragedies. How many mothers betrayed by their children? How many family secrets hidden behind those lit windows? The phone vibrated again, this time an unknown number. My heart raced. I hesitated before opening the message. "Sarah, it's Alice. Please listen to me. Ben is desperate. We made a mistake. We can fix this. You'll forgive us, right? You're his mother. Mothers always forgive." The anger I felt was so strong I had to sit down so I wouldn't fall. Alice, the woman who had planned my humiliation as if it were a fun game, now asking for forgiveness. Not out of remorse, but because they lost. I blocked that number too. Then I turned off the phone completely and put it on the table. I needed silence. I needed to think. I walked to my bedroom and fell onto the bed without undressing. The sheets smelled of cheap fabric softener and solitude. I closed my eyes trying to sleep, but my mind was a whirlwind of images and memories mixing with recent reality. I saw Ben, aged 5, crying because school kids made fun of his secondhand clothes. I hugged him then and promised him one day he would have new things. I saw Ben, aged 15, proud when he won his first science prize. I had worked double shifts that week to pay for his project materials. I saw Ben, aged 25, introducing me to Alice, telling me she was the love of his life. I cried with happiness because I thought my son had found a companion. All those memories were now tainted. Every hug, every smile, every "I love you, Mom," now cast a shadow of doubt. When did he start to change? When did he stop seeing me as his mother and start seeing me as an obstacle? Was it when he found my father's properties? Or was there always something dark in him I didn't want to see? The questions tormented me without offering answers. Finally, around 3 a.m., exhaustion won and I fell asleep. I dreamed of my father. We were in a house I didn't know, big and empty. He walked in front of me, always out of reach. No matter how fast I ran, every door I opened was full of photos of strangers, whole families smiling at the camera. And in every photo, my father was there with his arm around a different woman, different children, all his secret lives hanging on the walls like trophies. I woke up startled at 6 a.m. with my heart racing and sheets wet with sweat. The gray light of dawn filtered through the window. I got up with an aching body as if I had fought a physical battle during the night. I went to the bathroom and washed my face with ice-cold water, trying to wake up to return to reality. The woman staring back at me from the mirror looked 10 years older. Deep bags under eyes, cracked lips, wrinkles more defined. Pain ages you. I made coffee as the sun finished rising. I sat at the kitchen table, wrapping my hands around the hot mug, letting the steam warm my face. Today I had to go to the solicitor with Raymond. Today the process of dismantling my father's inheritance officially began. Today I had to be strong. But right now, in the silence of my kitchen, I allowed myself to be fragile. I allowed myself to feel the full weight of betrayal. At 7:00, I turned on the phone. There were 15 messages from Ben from different numbers. I didn't open them. I deleted them all without reading. There were 5 missed calls from Alice. I ignored those too. And there was one message from Raymond sent at 6:30 a.m. Good morning, Sarah. Hope you managed to get some rest. I'm waiting for you at 10. We'll start fixing this together. Your brother Ray. Your brother. Those two words gave me a strange warmth. I never had a brother. I was always an only child. But now I had Ray, a man who protected me when he could have ignored me, who offered me an alliance when he could have seen me as a competitor, who called me sister after knowing me for only a day. Family doesn't always come from where expected. Sometimes it comes from the shadows of an abandoned warehouse. I showered, put on my smartest clothes, a dark gray dress I wore for special occasions, and combed my hair carefully. I needed to look dignified. I needed to feel in control, even though inside I was a mess. At 8:30, I took the bus towards the city, where the solicitor's office was. The journey was long, heavy morning traffic and noise, but I used the time to prepare myself mentally. Raymond was already waiting outside the building when I arrived. He wore black trousers and a white shirt, freshly ironed, probably bought specifically for this occasion. He looked nervous but determined. He smiled when he saw me approaching. "I thought maybe you'd change your mind." I shook my head. "No, I have to do this. For me, for my mother, for all the truths that were never spoken." He nodded and offered me his arm. I took it, and we entered the building together. The solicitor's office was on the 5th floor. Beige walls framed diplomas, bookshelves full of law codes. The solicitor was a man of about 50 with thick glasses and a serious expression. His name was Javier Waite. Let's make him British. His name was James. He welcomed us with a formal handshake and invited us to sit in leather chairs in front of his dark wooden desk. Mr. Davies explained the basic situation over the phone. James opened a thick folder. "But I need you to tell me everything from the beginning, every important detail." For the next hour, Raymond and I told everything. Our father's secret families, the will with the special clause, Ben's plan to destroy me and take the inheritance, the evidence Raymond had collected, the warehouse documents, everything. James took notes, meticulously asking specific questions, asking for clarification. His face remained neutral, professional, but I could see his eyebrows raise occasionally at the most shocking details. "It's complex, but manageable," James said, finally closing his notebook. "The will's clause is clear. If we can prove that Benjamin tried to defraud Sarah through deception, he automatically forfeits any right to the inheritance. The evidence Raymond collected is strong. Emails, text messages, bank transfers. That will be enough." He looked directly at me. "But I need to ask you something, Mrs. Sarah. Are you ready for this? Proceeding legally means your son will face consequences, possibly criminal charges. Are you prepared for that?" The question hit me like a punch. Was I ready to see my son face criminal charges? The mother in me screamed, "No, that we find another way, that I forgive him." But the woman who had been humiliated, betrayed, and used knew there was no other choice. "I'm ready," I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. My son made his decisions. Now he must face the consequences. James nodded with approval. He began explaining the legal process to us. First, he would submit the evidence to the senior solicitor responsible for the will. Then a formal hearing would be held where all heirs would be summoned. Ben would have the chance to defend himself, but with the mountain of evidence Raymond had collected, his options were limited. "The whole process will take between 4 to 6 weeks, James said, organizing documents on his desk. "But I can tell you the outcome is almost certain. Benjamin will lose his rights. The inheritance will be divided between you two." Raymond and I exchanged glances. "We want to do something specific with the money," I said. "We don't want to take it all. We want to create a fund to help single mothers who work cleaning houses, give them scholarships for their children, economic support opportunities." James took off his glasses and looked at us with an expression he hadn't shown before. Respect, even admiration. "That is extraordinary. I can help you set up a legal foundation, ensure the money is used correctly, that it reaches those who really need it." We spent another hour discussing details. What would the foundation be called? How would we select beneficiaries? What percentage of money would be allocated to education scholarships? And what percentage to direct economic support? Raymond suggested naming it the Rose and Victoria Foundation in honor of our mothers. I nodded with tears in my eyes. It was perfect. Our mothers who died broken and forgotten would now have a legacy helping other women avoid the same fate. When we left the solicitor's office, it was almost midday. The sun shone brightly and the city bustled with life. Raymond invited me for lunch.
We found a small family cafe 2 blocks away with plastic tables and a handwritten menu on a chalkboard. We ordered soup and soft drinks. We ate in silence for a few minutes, each immersed in our own thoughts. "Do you think our mothers would be proud?" I asked, finally breaking the silence. Raymond put down his spoon and looked directly at me. "I think they would be more than proud. They would be amazed. Their children who grew up apart, who never knew about each other, met and decided to turn pain into hope. That is more than our father did in his entire life." He was right. Our father spent decades accumulating properties and secrets, building walls between his families. We, in less than 24 hours, had decided to tear down those walls and use his resources to build something better. "Are you afraid of the hearing?" Raymond asked. I thought about the question honestly. Yes, I have to see Ben face to face, hear his justifications, his lies, see him try to manipulate everyone like he always does. But I also know I have to do it, not for revenge, but for justice, to close this chapter and be able to move on. Raymond nodded slowly. "I'll be there, by your side during the whole hearing. You won't face him alone." We finished eating and walked around the city center with no specific destination. We passed shops, parks, street vendors. People surrounded us, everyone living their own complex stories. "You know what's weirdest about all this?" I said as we sat on a bench under the shade of a large tree. "That if Ben hadn't been so greedy, if he hadn't betrayed me in such a cruel way, I would never have known the truth. I would never have gone to that warehouse. I would never have met you." Raymond let out a bitter, ironic laugh. "His betrayal brought us together. His plan to destroy you ended up creating something he never expected, a real family." We sat there for nearly an hour just talking, sharing memories of our separate childhoods, but strangely similar. Our mother's struggles, sacrifices, moments of hunger and cold, small victories we celebrated as if they were huge. We discovered we had much more in common than just blood. The following weeks were a storm of legal processes, meetings with James, and preparations for the hearing. Ben tried to contact me many times. Messages from new numbers letters left at my door. He even appeared once in front of my building. But I didn't give in. Raymond had given me an emergency whistle and the phone number of a policeman friend. Every time Ben approached, we documented it. More evidence of harassment for the legal case. Alice tried a different tactic. She posted fake stories on social media about how I was a cruel mother destroying her son for money. Some acquaintances wrote to me asking if it was true. I explained the real situation. Some believed me, others chose Ben's side. I learned that in times of crisis, you discover who your real friends are, and the list was shorter than I thought. But I also discovered new allies. Emily, the hotel receptionist, visited me one afternoon. She brought homemade cake and tea. We sat in my small living room, and she cried while apologizing to me for giving information to Ben months ago. "I didn't know he would use it to hurt you," she sobbed. "I thought he was just interested in knowing his grandfather." I hugged her and told her it wasn't her fault. She was as much a victim of my father's secrets as we all were. The night before the hearing, I could barely sleep. I woke up 3 times to drink water. I checked my dark gray dress 5 times to make sure it was clean and ironed. I mentally rehearsed what I would say if asked to speak. At 4 a.m., I finally gave up and made coffee. I sat by the window watching the city wake up slowly. The sky changed from black to gray to orange. Raymond arrived at 700 to accompany me. He wore a dark suit that looked new, maybe bought specifically for this occasion. "Ready?" he asked. I took a deep breath. As ready as I can be. The hearing was held in the probate office building, an old but elegant building in the historic center. We entered a large room with dark wooden walls, upholstered chairs, and a long table where the solicitors would sit. Ben was already there. He looked haggard with deep bags under his eyes and a crumpled suit. Alice was beside him with perfect makeup, but a tense expression. When they saw me enter, Ben stood up. "Mum, please." He started, but his solicitor pulled him down. Raymond squeezed my shoulder gently, and we sat on the opposite side of the room. The division was clear. Them on one side, us on the other. The senior solicitor entered, an elderly man with completely white hair and a stern expression. He sat down, reviewed documents, and began the hearing. For the next 2 hours, James presented all the evidence. Emails where Ben planned my humiliation, bank transfers to the private investigator, text messages between him and Alice laughing at my naivety. Emily's testimony. Everything was there. displayed under the cold light of the courtroom. Ben's solicitor tried to argue it was all a misunderstanding, that his client was merely investigating family history, that the hotel incident was a miscommunication. But his argument sounded hollow against the mountain of evidence. The senior solicitor listened in silence, making occasional notes, his expression impenetrable. When it came time for those involved to speak, Ben stood up. "I just wanted what was mine," he said. His voice trembled between anger and desperation. "My grandfather was rich and we lived in poverty. Why? Why did he keep all that while my mother cleaned houses until she broke? I have a right to that wealth. I need it. I deserve it. And Mum," he looked directly at me, "Mum would never do anything with that money. She would waste it on charity or keep it without using it. I would have done something big with it." I stood up, surprising myself. "You are right about one thing, Ben. Your grandfather was rich and he left us in poverty. That was cruel and unfair. But your solution was to repeat his cruelty, lying, manipulating, using people. You became just like him." My voice cracked, but I continued. "I would have given you everything if you had asked. Everything. But you chose to destroy me rather than trust me. And that choice says more about who you are than who your grandfather was." The silence that followed was absolute. Ben slumped in his chair with his head in his hands. Alice cried silently. The senior solicitor closed his folder with a dry thud. "I have heard enough. The evidence is clear. Benjamin Hernandez violated the will's clause prohibiting fraud between heirs. Therefore, he forfeits all rights to the inheritance of Marcus Davies. The entire estate will be divided among the remaining legitimate heirs, Sarah Davies and Raymond Davies. This hearing is closed." He struck the table with his gavel. We walked out of the office into bright sunlight that seemed out of place, cheerful. Raymond hugged me tightly on the pavement. "You did it! You faced him and won!" But I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, sad. I had won a legal battle, but I had lost my son. "We will turn that pain into something beautiful," Raymond said, as if reading my mind. "We will help so many families that your son will never be able to erase the good we will do." 6 months later, the Rose and Victoria Foundation officially opened. We sold the 5 properties for a total of $2.1 million London prices. We gave £50,000 to Emily, who cried for an hour when we handed her the check. The rest, we split a portion for us to secure our future, and the vast majority for the foundation. In the first year, we gave 30 full scholarships to children of domestic workers. We helped 50 mothers with emergency rent payments. We funded 3 small businesses for women who wanted to stop cleaning other people's houses. I never spoke to Ben again. I heard from others that he and Alice divorced 6 months after the hearing, that he moved to another city, that he works in something that doesn't pay much. Part of me still aches when I think of him. He was my son. That love isn't completely erased, but I learned that loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. Sometimes the hardest love is the one kept at a distance. Raymond became my real family. We have dinner together every Sunday. We celebrate birthdays. We cry on the anniversaries of our mother's deaths, and we work together at the foundation, interviewing families, giving scholarships, seeing how our father's dirty money finally does something good in the world. Once, while reviewing applications in my small flat, Raymond told me something I will never forget. Our father taught us how not to live. He showed us the wrong path so clearly we had no choice but to choose the opposite. In that twisted sense, he gave us a gift. He gave us certainty about what kind of people we don't want to be. He was right. I didn't want to be like my father, keeping secrets and building an empire on lies. I didn't want to be like my son, destroying others out of greed. I wanted to be like my mother, like Raymond's mother. Women who worked until they broke to give something better to their children. Today, 3 years after that afternoon at the hotel where my world collapsed, I look back and see the path clearly. The pain was real. The betrayal was devastating. But from the ashes grew something unexpected. A brotherhood with a man who should have been a stranger, but became my anchor. A foundation bearing the names of 2 forgotten women and now helping hundreds. And a stronger, wiser version of myself, finally free from the lies that defined my family for generations. My son left me penniless in a luxury hotel, but an old receptionist gave me an envelope that changed my life. Inside wasn't just a key to a warehouse. There was a key to the truth. And although that truth destroyed me, it also set me free. Now I walk in the world without the burden of secrets that aren't mine, without the illusion of a perfect family that never existed, only with the imperfect but honest reality of who I am and what I choose to do with the time I have left. And that I found is worth more than any inheritance.